Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Rise Up, Voices from the Frontline Sparks. Today is a family edition, so we are going to be talking today about what happens when we focus on extremes, overcompensation, and what are we doing to our kids? So I've worked with hundreds of parents, and over the course of that, some really important things have become really apparent. We, as parents, want so much to do right by our children that oftentimes we take the experiences that we had growing up and we decide that we are going to be the exact opposite of everything that happened to us, right? We want our kids, if we had poverty, we want our kids to have everything that they ever wanted. If our parents were strict, we become extremely permissive with our children because we want them not to feel the way that we felt growing up. And there are unintended consequences that happen when we take our traumas and our response to those traumas, instead of going through the process of healing ourselves, we go to an extreme, which is the opposite of what we experienced. And we give our kids what we think in the moment is the best thing. But in giving them that, we create unintended consequences for them. And I want to talk about some examples of how that looks. So just talking to an amazing, super successful mom yesterday, it was brought to my attention again, this concept and how it plays out in so many different ways. She was talking about, how she provides everything for her kids so that they never have the discomfort that she had growing up. So they never feel like there's a lack. So they never have to worry about where the money's coming from. And she made the comment that her children are now spoiled and that she completely recognizes that and takes responsibility for it. But now we have adults that feel entitled to a certain quality of life. And they don't know, they don't have the skills to face the challenges to achieve that for themselves because they never had to learn how to create the positive outcomes that they desired in life. Those positive outcomes were handed to them, and they didn't learn the tools and resources that they needed to aggressively pursue what it was that they wanted. So that mother, that beautiful woman who is so successful, has realized that now her children have to learn as adults. They have to learn all of these tools and resources and the skill sets that it takes to be successful in life. And that's a detriment to our children. And the same thing applies for inclusivity. And I get creamed when I say this because everybody wants an inclusive society. But there is a difference between societal acceptance and politeness and kindness and how we should behave in environments around other people with empathy and consideration and concern and all of those things, and forced exposure and friendship. And in these forced exposure models, what we're doing is we're creating an environment where where children are being told that others are entitled to your space, to be in your space, to have your attention and your affection, and you have no say in that matter. We take away their autonomy, we take away their voice, and we tell them that no matter how another person treats you, no matter how another person behaves, no matter what your experience with that person is, how uncomfortable you are in and around that person for whatever reason, maybe they're unkind to you. No matter what your concern is, that doesn't matter as long as the other person is allowed to be included. So we don't care about the quality of the inclusion. All we're focusing on in this model is a social picture that looks like inclusion. And the unintended consequences of this type of model are that your child becomes unable to express their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. They become people pleasers. They become unable to listen to their own discernment when it comes to who should and should not have access to them, to their bodies, to their space, to their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. They fail to understand how to determine what is a safe and unsafe relationship dynamic. And these are really important skills for children to learn. So instead of creating this over focus on inclusion, don't get me wrong, inclusion is not a bad word. We want an inclusive society, but we're taking it to an extreme that is silencing the voices of our children, that is not allowing them to dissent. It's not allowing them to have an opinion that is outside of what is acceptable in this model. So they're not learning how to have relationships. They're not learning rupture and repair, which is normal in childhood. One of the biggest skills these young people should be learning, need to be learning, is emotional intelligence, empathy, and what it feels like to overcome the relational challenges that happen naturally through play, through engagement, through choosing who they want to be with and who they want to invite to their parties. And when we choose to over-include, to over-force these friendships that aren't really friendships, when we silence our children and don't allow them to say, I don't like this person, and don't allow them to say that this person isn't nice, when we stop them from being able to communicate their discomfort, not only are we stopping our children from being able to express their thoughts, feelings, and emotions and to control and understand relationships, we're also taking away the other child's ability to handle disappointment, to handle the stress of not being accepted, of not being included. Because somewhere later in their life, they are going to be denied access to something. They're going to be told no. They're going to be told that they can't come. They're going to be told they're not welcome in some space. And because we created this environment where they just automatically get to be included, where we forced it so hard that they don't have to be kind and they don't have to earn their space and they don't have to maneuver social in-groups and out-groups and the psychology that is normal and natural in relationship development, because they don't have to play in that model. They don't have to have those interactions. They don't face those disappointments early on. They don't struggle with the sadness and the feelings of not being included and all of that stuff. They don't struggle with that because they've been protected from it. But that protection leaves them vulnerable to those same feelings happening later in their life. And here's the kicker, parents. Here's the kicker for you guys. You guys are saying this is about protecting your children. But in reality, the bottom line is this is about protecting yourself from the discomfort that your child is going to feel trying to maneuver these social environments. Your child's going to come home crying, and you don't want your child to come home crying. So you're going to do everything you can to protect them from having that experience. And what that's really doing is protecting you from having to deal with that experience, because you can't handle when your child is sad. You can't handle when your child has big emotions that they need to process. You don't have the tools and resources to help your child learn from disappointments and learn from losing and learn from failing. So I know this sounds kind of harsh. And I know some of you guys are going to say, because I use that word inclusion, you're going to say that I'm like some kind of crazy political person. I'm not using that word to talk about inclusiveness as a general topic. I am talking about the forced extreme level of inclusion that silences your children and doesn't allow them to have any selection in the people that they spend their time with, and doesn't allow them to speak their minds if something doesn't feel good to them in an environment where other children are present. And that might look like, I don't like Johnny because Johnny does something or says something. And sometimes the things that our children notice about another person might not be the kindest things, but that is normal and natural for children. And if you shut down their expression, if you shut down their voicing their concerns and their feelings, they're not learning how to modulate their feelings and their words. So if you allow them to speak their mind, and then you teach them kinder ways to speak their mind, or you teach them other ways of viewing the situation, or you show them Johnny's perspective, they learn important skills. But when you don't allow them to voice those concerns, they do not learn anything other than that their voice doesn't matter. So be careful as you're listening to this to catch the nuances of what I'm saying and not to take offense that I'm saying that inclusion isn't important, or that we don't want to ensure that all children are being given opportunities. That's not at all what I'm saying. I am saying there is a middle place where our children are allowed to have their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and express those freely in a safe environment where those expressions can be used to teach them how to have better relationships with others who may be different than them, and to teach empathy so that they may have more understanding for the experiences of others. And when we force relationships without teaching empathy, we create a world where your children grow up and flip, and then they hate certain people, and then they can't be in disagreement with others in a safe way because they've not learned how to do that. So anyone who disagrees with them becomes an enemy. And anyone who doesn't have the same thoughts, feelings, emotions that they do becomes intolerable because they don't know how to rupture and repair in a relationship in a healthy way, in a safe way. So I would love your feedback. I would love to hear what you think about what I'm saying. And I would love for more opportunities to challenge the way that you see the world around you and the way that you see your children's world. And to notice in places where you might be overcompensating for something that you experienced as a child, and to think really deeply on what might be the possible repercussions in your child's skill set that are unintended consequences that you may have not thought about before now. So leave me some comments, leave me some notes. If you like this podcast and you would like to be a sponsor, please let us know. We are still looking for some amazing sponsors who support our fight against human trafficking, domestic violence, and child abuse. And also like, share, follow, do all of those things so we can keep getting the word out, and we can keep growing, and we can keep having amazing guests who bring you wonderful tools and resources to help you have emotionally healthy, resilient, empowered children. Today's episode has been sponsored by Doug's Shop. So I'm going to leave you with just a quick word from them, and they are amazing.